We're sharing a tale today about a cheating wife who is found after coming out, and how her husband promptly puts her in her proper place. Yes, he treated the AP like a man and did not spare him. I am a 34-year-old man who has been married for 5 years to my wife, Linda, a 36-year-old housewife. I recently chose to surprise Linda by returning home early on a Sunday night rather than Monday afternoon while on a work trip. Linda sent me a startling SMS as I was heading home. She said that she had a great time throughout the week, and that she would do it again the next time her husband, that is, me, travels for work. She continued by saying that she would miss having sex every day and that she missed waking up to someone else. I stopped in a parking lot to read the message again since I was so shocked by what I was reading. I answered, "Get a lawyer," after making sure it wasn't a delusion. I thought she would be cool with one lawyer mediating our divorce because of our prenuptial agreement. After tossing my phone into the seat, I headed home, ignoring her texts and phone calls. I heard her narrating the problem over the phone with a male voice when I got home. I stepped in and said, "Honey, I'm home," without her knowing. Her expression was priceless. "Are you speaking to the lawyer?" I inquired, and she dropped her phone in panic. I walked to the bedroom, took the bed linens off, and began packing everything into black plastic bags, despite her insistence that it was all a joke. Linda was crying, claiming it was a joke, but I didn't believe them. I had to take action to move on because the betrayal was too great to endure. The comforter wouldn't fit with the blanket and sheets, so I ended up needing 2 bags. Disregarding her, I went outside to my car and tossed the 2 bags in the trunk. In case I required proof, I assumed that there was evidence of sex because they were the linens she had been using with the guy for the last week. I don't believe Linda connected the dots, and I didn't need it. Linda flung herself at me and begged me to speak with her when I returned inside the home. "It's a joke," she insisted again. I informed her that it was a really poor one and promised to speak with her only after we had seen a lawyer. I then reminded her that she only had one chance to tell the truth. "In order to expose the truth and destroy you in court, I have the bed linens sent to a lab for fluid stains." She simply nodded in agreement without saying much. "Who is he?" I let out a yell. "Richard was the one." I was surprised. "I'm friends with him." "Was it a buddy of mine?" There was silence in the room. She gave me a perplexed look when I broke the quiet and inquired whether she had a place to stay. "You won't be staying at my place," I informed her. "Go stay with your folks after packing your baggage. You will never again reside here. I'll pack and transport your personal items to you." She collapsed on the ground, sobbing and uttering phrases like, "No, no, Chant, I love you." And it doesn't mean anything. I was forced to confront her by threatening to haul her and her shit out into the yard or to let her pack and go. Before we were married, this was the home of my family, passed on to me when my parents made the decision to relocate to a warm weather condo. It was still owned by my parents, but I would inherit it once they died. To make sure I was within my rights, Linda had no claim to the residence. I told my father what had transpired over the phone. He was done swearing. After all, "How can I help?" he inquired. I requested that he text my wife. He had her phone number and told her to leave the house. She could have, of course, gotten involved and forced us to go, but she realized it wouldn't have been wise for her. After gathering her belongings, Linda entered the garage. I had stolen her vehicle key from her handbag as she was packing, so she had to search everywhere for it and couldn't locate it. The issue with Linda is her laziness. She was never interested in sitting with me to do the real paperwork when we went automobile shopping. Thus, I was the owner of both of our vehicles. I didn't feel compelled to let her have one of them, because of the infidelity. In addition, I was using my personal bank account to pay for both cars. I informed her directly that I owned both cars and that she could either contact her parents or take an Uber. She began screaming at me for being cruel while she was still in a panic. She didn't want to push her luck with me. I warned her, my voice trembling as I slammed my face into hers. I offered my hand and said, "Phone," as she retreated. "No," she responded, looking even more astonished. I knew I could establish who bought the phone, so I questioned her. My credit card had it. Since I was once again the sole one on the T-Mobile contract, I told her she could have the old phone in the drawer and get her own line. Reluctantly, she took the ancient phone out of the drawer and handed it over. As I mentioned before, Linda is lazy and usually uses one of 3 passwords, so I would later discover a ton of information about the affair. In this instance, it was her birth year's 4 digits. After escorting her out, I waited for her parents to arrive by blocking the entrance. Linda started crying again and rushed to her mother as soon as they got out of the car. Her father approached me sternly and inquired about the situation. I showed him the text she sent me after taking out my phone. After reading it, his face turned pale, and he apologized while nodding. They departed, and I didn't speak to my now ex-wife again until Linda's belongings were loaded. We didn't meet for mediation at the lawyer's office until later that week. I had promised Linda early on in our dating life that I would never get married again without a prenuptial agreement because of the terrible experience of my first marriage. Despite her lack of commitment, she didn't protest because it seemed reasonable. Each individual would be in charge of their own credit cards and loans in their name, and we would only distribute bank assets equally. We didn't split any cards, and because Linda primarily used hers to go out to Starbucks with friends, etc., I owed the most of the bill. In the event of a divorce, the prenup further specified that neither alimony nor access to the other's retirement would be granted for any reason. Since the original paper was several pages long, I'm making this simpler. All of the assets we had bought were considered and assessed by the mediator, a lawyer we hired. Because to the prenuptial agreement, Linda ultimately received precisely half of our money and bank accounts. All significant purchases, including the majority of her jewelry, were made using my card, thus she was only allowed to keep what she bought with her credit card. Since I wouldn't know what to do with it, I didn't object to her keeping that. Additionally, I let her keep whatever furnishings she desired. I always cut Linda off when she tried to speak. There was no way out of this. She didn't make a mistake by cheating once. She was involved in a serious affair. We never had children because Linda was fortunate enough to have too much scar tissue in her uterus to carry a child to term. This could have resulted from an abortion she had during her high school years, the doctor stated. We stopped trying because of the emotional chaos that resulted from her several miscarriages throughout the first 2 years. Thanks to the mediator and the prenuptial agreement, our divorce was swift and uneventful. It took 6 months, the most of which was spent in a waiting period that was required. Though I'm still in my 30s and eat healthily, I'm in decent condition, and by no means a Hollywood heartthrob. Although my wife was attractive on the outside, her sloth was making her soften. Despite her softness, I thought she was appealing, and it seems her lover did too. She'll be able to find someone else, I'm sure. I never got any information on the affair partner or what happened to him. After she dropped the phone, Linda claimed he heard her yelling that it was a mistake and that she loved me so much that they quit dating. He probably chose to opt out since she was telling him something else. Have I forgiven Richard? No, after I got divorced. I got to know him. At his house. I have divorced the 304 that you were screwing, I informed him. Now is the moment for you to get what is due to you. I informed him that, although my wife cheating on me was one thing, I wouldn't tolerate a buddy stabbing you in the back. I needed to prepare for this confrontation for 6 months. I did nothing when I lost love in the past. I was ready for this time. He attempted to attack me while yelling at me that I had ended his relationship with Linda. I punched him in the nose and cracked him. I landed on top of him and continued to strike him. With each blow I delivered, my tears streamed down my cheeks. I let months of annoyance and rage to go through me. I continued to beat him till he remained conscious. After spending a few minutes sitting next to his lifeless corpse, I dialed 911. He was taken to the hospital by the paramedics when they arrived. I was escorted to the police station after being arrested. I was surprised to learn that I had been fired in the evening. Richard had apparently not accused me of anything. Richard sent me a mail the next day. We are even, it simply stated. That's my tale. I probably seemed like I didn't love or care for Linda, but I actually did. Going through this was really painful. But regrettably, I had already experienced divorce in my early 20s. I suppose it's strike two. I have no immediate plans to get a third one. I want the best for everyone who has to put up with this shit. Because it doesn't have the same stigma, make sure to refer to your prenuptial agreement as an equitable marriage contract. According to the attorney, they are far more prevalent currently than most people realize. The second story is now up. At our son's birthday celebration, my wife cheated by using the arcade mascot. As I discovered on that fateful day, you can never really understand the concept of normalcy until life plunges you into the depths of lunacy. Such anomalies can even be staged for a child's pirate-themed birthday party. At our son's birthday celebration, I witnessed my wife, Jennifer, who I thought was my soulmate, in the unfaithful embrace of a pirate mascot. For his 6th birthday, our son David only wanted a pirate's plunder party since he was so captivated with the local pirate-themed arcade. Jennifer and I were delighted to comply. With a large arcade floor, themed party rooms, and 2 mascots, a friendly shark named Scaly Whack, and a pirate dubbed Captain Cutlass, the venue was amazing. The children loved them, David in particular. The celebration day was beautiful and bright, and brimming with excitement. With ship-shaped invites, pirate-themed balloons, skull and crossbones balloons, and even a treasure chest cake, Jennifer had truly gone all out. As they rushed around, earning tickets and vying for the greatest scores on the arcade games, the youngsters were ecstatic, and the air was filled with laughter and joy. Jennifer appeared to be in a good mood as well, and David was having a great time. Her laughing blended with the kids, and her eyes glistened as she saw our son having fun. It should have been the ideal occasion, But then I saw something strange. In all his gaudy, overflowing splendor, Captain Cutlass was more interested in Jennifer than the children. She was posing for photos, smiling at his jokes, and even engaging in light-hearted discussion. At first I dismissed it as the contagious enthusiasm of the celebration, but as time went on, their exchanges became less innocent. I attempted to dismiss it, telling myself that it was all my imagination, until I caught a glimpse of them slipping inside an employees-only door. I walked silently to the door, being cautious not to draw attention to myself, my heart thumping in my chest. I took a deep breath and pushed the door open to discover Captain Cutlass and Jennifer in a passionate hug. I felt a wave of surprise, rage, and incredulity. I would never be able to forget the picture of Jennifer in the pirate mascot's arms. With a yell, I charged Captain Cutlass. The mascot was knocked into a pile of cardboard boxes as my fist struck his enormous padded skull. When my wife Jennifer realized she had been caught, she gasped and her face went white. "Chris," she began. I wasn't in the mood to listen, though. Despite her cries for me to stop, I took her arm and almost pulled her out of the back room. With my pulse thumping wildly in my chest, I felt flushed. We put on phony smiles and went back into the celebration. We refused to allow our son's special day be overshadowed by our personal problems. It was a bitter performance, even though we sang, cut the cake, and laughed. The stillness was overwhelming once the party was over and we had loaded everything into the car. It wasn't until we got home that we spoke. With the remains of his birthday cake all over his face, David curled up in bed. Jennifer made an effort to defend and explain, but her remarks were ignored. A chilly rage blazed within me. Her treachery was brought home with every word she uttered. "It was a stupid mistake," she said, tears streaming down her face. "A mistake, Jennifer? You don't just accidentally cheat on your husband with a goddamn pirate mascot," I snapped. My voice echoed through the silent house, mirroring the hollow ache in my chest. "I don't know what I was thinking." "I'm sorry," she whispered, her eyes pleading for forgiveness. I wanted to believe her, to take her in my arms and forget everything. But the image of her with Captain Cutlass kept replaying in my mind. "Sorry doesn't cut it, Jennifer," I said, my voice flat. "We were broken by you. Our family was destroyed by you," she cried because I had messed up Chris. "I am aware that I made a mistake. Let's discuss this for David, please." However, I had moved past the topic of conversation. My son's mother, the woman I loved, had betrayed our marriage and our family. I didn't have faith in my ability to make snap judgments. However, one thing was evident. I required room. I said, "We'll talk tomorrow." "Jennifer," my voice had a finality about it. "I'm staying in the guest room tonight." Jennifer nodded while her eyes continued to well up with tears. Her cries reverberated behind me as I left her in the living room. A chilling reminder of what had happened that day. My mind became a vortex of uncertainty and rage as I laid on the guest bed that night. Sleep was a far-off fantasy. I again relived the events of the day. Seeing Jennifer in the arms of the mascot, the sense of treachery. Even though it hurt to think about it, I knew what I had to do. Jennifer was weeping and had red, swollen eyes when I discovered her in the kitchen the following morning. David remained sleeping, blissfully oblivious to the impending conflict between his parents. Tension permeated the air as I inhaled deeply and spoke the words I never would have imagined saying. "I want a divorce, Jennifer." Like a heavy, irrevocable guillotine, the words lingered in the air. Jennifer's eyes became wide and silence fell for a second. The quiet was then broken by a sob, a somber sound that mirrored the dissolution of our once joyful home. It seems like there are always surprises in life, and occasionally those surprises take the kind of pirate mascots at a child's birthday celebration. I couldn't help but think of the delight and purity that had begun the day before when I started this new, unexplored route. A life-changing insight was sparked by a child's birthday celebration, but I knew this was only the start of a long road as I mourned the loss of my marriage. A path toward recovery, self-discovery, and above all making sure my son David was spared from this terrible crossfire.